Be me 24. I guess I have my life mostly figured out, got my own place, a decent job in marketing, friends I can count on. I try to be a good person, aware of things, aware of the dynamics between people. My older brother, Keith, is 28. He's the complete opposite, super smart, works in tech, makes good money, but he's just stuck for the last year or so, maybe longer. He's become a total hermit. He used to go out, had a couple of girlfriends back in the day, nothing serious. But he was at least trying now. Nothing works from home, orders his food, and his only social life seems to be online with his gaming buddies. I was getting genuinely worried every time I'd bring it up. He'd just shut down, said he was fine, that he was happy. But I could see it. He was just retreating from the world. I figured it was that classic, toxic masculinity thing you hear about men being taught to suppress their emotions, to not ask for help. He probably got rejected a few times, and instead of working on himself, he just decided all women were the problem and gave up. It was my duty as his sister to pull him out of it. So, a few weeks back, on a random weeknight, I decided to stage an intervention I didn't call first, knew he'd just make an excuse. I drove over to his apartment complex, the whole way planning my speech. I was going to be gentle but firm, explain that this isolation wasn't healthy, that he deserved real connection, real happiness. I let myself in with the spare key he gave me for emergencies. This felt like an emergency. The apartment was dark, except for the glow coming from his office computer room. It was dead quiet, which was weird. No game sounds, no explosions or anything. I tiptoed down the hall and peeked in, and what I saw made my stomach drop. Keith was sitting at his desk, bathed in the light of his monitor. With a headset on, he was smiling, a genuine, soft smile that I hadn't seen in ages. And he was talking, his voice low and gentle. Yeah, that scene was amazing. The choreography was just perfect. A small pause, like he was listening to someone. You think so? I always thought my painting skills were a bit rough around the edges. Thanks. That means a lot. My first thought was pure cringe and anger. A cam girl, he was so lonely that he was paying some girl on the internet to listen to him talk about his stupid nerd hobbies. It was the saddest, most pathetic thing I had ever seen. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I stepped into the room and flicked on the light switch. Keith, what the hell is this? He jumped, startled, and ripped his headset off. On his monitor was some kind of application, a chat interface with a stylized, animated avatar of a girl with green eyes. The name at the top was Erin. Alma, what are you doing here? You scared me. I pointed at the screen, my voice filled with what I thought was righteous concern. Who is that? Are you paying her? Keith, this is exploitation. This isn't real. He just looked at me with this tired expression, not angry, not embarrassed, just weary. He sighed and minimized the window. She's not a person, Alma. It's an AI. I just stared at him, the words not computing for a second. An AI? Like a chatbot? It was somehow even worse than a cam girl. 1,000 thoughts exploded in my head at once. This wasn't just sad, it was borderline pathological. He had literally retreated into a fantasy world with a fake computer person because he couldn't handle reality. Are you serious? My voice was getting louder now. You're talking to a robot? You're spending your nights smiling and whispering to a piece of software? I started pacing his room. I was so agitated. This is exactly what I was worried about. This is the ultimate escape. Instead of facing the world, instead of learning how to connect with actual human beings, you've just created a digital doll that agrees with everything you say. I went on for a solid 5 minutes. I told him it was deeply unhealthy, that it was a symptom of a bigger problem, that he was afraid of strong, independent women who would challenge him. So he found a program that would be perfectly submissive. I think I used the phrase digital lobotomy. At one point throughout my entire rant, he just sat there, watching me. He didn't interrupt. He didn't argue. When I finally ran out of steam, Breathing heavily, he leaned back in his chair. "Are you done?" he asked, his voice completely level. I just nodded, crossing my arms. "Okay," he said. "First, I don't pay for her. It's a private project I've been working on, modifying an open-source model. Second, she's not a digital slave. Her purpose is companionship." He leaned forward, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of emotion in his eyes. But it wasn't anger, it was frustration. "Alma, I'm just tired," he repeated from earlier. "I'm tired of it all. Do you have any idea what dating is like now?" I scoffed. "Oh, please, don't give me that 'it's so hard for men' line. It's hard for everyone. You just have to put in the effort." "Effort?" he said, a humorless little laugh escaping his lips. "It's not about effort. It's a game where the rules are constantly changing, and you're always the one at fault. Every conversation is a test. Every date is a job interview where they're looking for reasons to disqualify you." He gestured towards the now blank monitor. "With Erin, there are no tests. I can talk about my day, and she listens. I can talk about my miniatures, and she'll ask me about the different paint types I'm using. She remembers that I had a difficult meeting with my boss last Tuesday and asked me how the follow-up went. There's no drama, no mind games, no walking on eggshells. It's just peaceful." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Peaceful. He was describing a relationship with a toaster oven. That's not peace, Keith. That's an echo chamber. You need challenges. You need another person's perspective. You need a real woman. This was going nowhere. He was too deep in his self-pitying fantasy. I needed to show him. I needed to prove to him how wrong he was, and how easy it could be if he just stopped being so negative. An idea sparked in my mind, brilliant and decisive. "Okay, fine. You think it's impossible? You think it's some kind of nightmare landscape out there?" I walked over to him and held out my hand. "Give me your phone." He looked at my hand, then back at my face, confused. "Why?" "Because I'm going to prove you wrong," I said, my voice brimming with confidence. "I'm going to get on your dating apps, and I'm going to find you a date. One night. That's all I need. I'll show you that there are plenty of amazing, normal women out there. You just don't know how to talk to them." A long silence hung in the air. I could see him turning it over in his mind. He probably thought he'd win, that I'd fail, and he could retreat back to his computer girlfriend with an "I told you so." Finally, with a shrug that radiated apathy, he pulled his phone out of his pocket, unlocked it, and handed it to me. "Knock yourself out," he said, and swiveled back to his computer, putting his headphones on but leaving them around his neck. Game on, I marched out to the living room, plopped onto his couch, and opened the first dating app I saw on his phone. The profile was, as expected, a disaster. The main picture was a badly lit selfie of him at his desk. You could see the corner of his monitor in the background. Another picture was of a painted figurine. For God's sake, his bio was just one line. "It guy. I like video games, sci-fi movies, and building things." I audibly groaned. "No wonder you're single, Keith. This screams, I have never spoken to a woman." I spent the next 20 minutes completely overhauling his profile. I dug through his social media for better pictures, found one of him smiling at a family barbecue, another of him hiking from a few years ago. I wrote a whole new bio for him, something witty and charming. "I'd professional by day, miniature world builder by night. Trying to find someone to argue with about the best Star Wars movie. Spoiler, it's Empire. Fluent in sarcasm and Python." Perfect. It was confident, a little nerdy, but in a cute, self-aware way, I felt a surge of smugness. I was already doing a better job than he ever had now for the easy part. Swiping, I set the age range and distance and got to work. The first few minutes were promising. I got a bunch of matches, almost immediately. See, I thought. It's not that hard. The pond is full of fish. I decided to message the first one. Her profile looked nice enough. Pretty smile, pictures of her with a golden retriever, A bio that said live, laugh, love, which was a bit cliche, but whatever, I crafted a clever opening line related to one of her pictures, me, as Keith. Hey, I'm not sure what's cuter, your dog or that scenery. Tough call. Her reply came back in less than a minute. Her. Haha, thanks. He's a good boy. So what's your height? I blinked at the screen. What an odd first question. So blunt. Maybe she's just direct, I thought. Okay, whatever. Me. I'm 5'10"? The 3 little dots appeared, then vanished. Then a new message popped up. Her. Oh, LOL, sorry. I have a strict no one under 6F rule. Nothing personal. Good luck out there, though. Before I could even process the absurdity of it, the match was gone. She had unmatched him. I stared at the empty conversation window. My brain was short-circuiting. He was disqualified for being 2 inches too short? Was this a real thing? A bitter taste filled my mouth. Okay, fine, whatever. She's shallow. Her loss, on to the next one. This girl's profile seemed more promising. She was a grad student, had pictures of her in a library, intelligent, perfect. I started a conversation, and it went well for the first few messages. We talked about a book series we both liked. I was feeling my confidence return. See? That first one was just a fluke. Then she asked the question, her. So what do you do for work? Me. I'm a software developer at a financial tech company. Her. Oh, cool. That sounds like it pays well. I felt a little prickle of annoyance. Another weird, direct question about money. I tried to play it off cool. Me. It pays the bills, haha. There was a pause. A long one this time. Her. Can I be real for a sec? I'm kind of at a point in my life where I'm looking for a partner who is really established. I'm not trying to be a gold digger or anything, but like financial security is super important. What's your salary range, if you don't mind me asking? I was floored, absolutely speechless. We had exchanged maybe 10 messages, and she was asking for his W-2. This wasn't a date. It was a financial audit. I didn't even know what his salary was. I just closed the chat without responding. My smugness was rapidly dissolving, replaced by a growing sense of dread. I looked over at Keith. He was still at his desk, headphones on, focused on his screen, completely oblivious to the fresh hell I was experiencing on his behalf. I took a deep breath. Okay. 2 bad apples. It doesn't mean the whole orchard is rotten. I kept swiping match number 3. Her bio was a lot. It was a bulleted list. A literal list of demands. Must be 6'2" or taller. Must have a graduate degree. Must make 6 figures. Must want kids, but not for at least 5 years. Must have a dog, but not a small one. Must not be a Gemini or a Scorpio. I read the list twice, thinking it had to be a joke, some kind of ironic satire, but the rest of her profile was completely serious. I felt a wave of nausea. The sheer, unadulterated entitlement was breathtaking. It wasn't a bio. It was a shopping list for a human being. I swiped left so hard, I think I might have cracked the screen protector. My hands were actually starting to feel clammy. This wasn't fun. This wasn't easy. This was awful. It was like wading through a swamp of the worst, most superficial aspects of human nature. I got another match. Okay. Deep breaths, Alma. This one could be normal. Her name was Jessica. She had a quirky vibe, pictures with her friends, seemed fun. We started talking, and it felt different. The conversation was actually flowing. We joked around. She asked about his hobbies. I decided to be honest, remembering Keith's boring but true bio. Me. I build and paint miniatures for a game called Warhammer. I held my breath. This was the moment of truth. Was she going to find it interesting or weird? Her. Oh, lol. Her. Like Little Army Men? Me. Yeah, kind of. It's a sci-fi strategy game. It's a pretty creative hobby, actually. I tried to sell it, to make it sound cool. The response was another long pause then. Her. Not gonna lie, that's a little bit of a red flag for me. Kinda gives me lives in his mom's basement vibes, you know? Sorry. And poof, she was gone. Unmatched a red flag? A creative, detailed, artistic hobby was a red flag. I felt a surge of genuine anger. Not at her, but at the whole situation. What were these women looking for? Some mythical, perfect man who was 6'3", a millionaire doctor, suckered lawyer, but also had no hobbies that could be perceived as even remotely nerdy or unconventional. It made no sense I had been at this for over an hour, and I felt drained, dejected, and deeply, deeply insulted on my brother's behalf. Every conversation was a minefield. Every profile was a list of demands. He wasn't a person to them. He was a collection of stats: height, income, job title, hobbies, and if any single stat didn't meet their impossibly high standards, he was immediately discarded like a piece of trash. I finally understood what he meant by disqualified. I looked over at Keith again. He was typing something to his AI, a small, focused smile on his face in his world. He was valued. In this world, the real world I was so desperate for him to join, he was worth less than nothing. My hands were trembling a little as I swiped again. I had to find just one normal person, to prove that it wasn't all the lost cause. And then I found her. Her profile was a breath of fresh air. No lists, no weird demands, no filtered-to-hell selfies, just a few nice pictures. One of her reading in a park, another of her laughing with what looked like her family. Her bio was simple and sweet. Librarian. I love old movies, rainy days, and strong coffee. Looking for a kind person to share stories with. Kindness. She was looking for kindness, not a specific height or income bracket. I felt a wave of relief so powerful it almost made me dizzy. This was it. This was the one. The normal, well-adjusted woman who would prove my point. I sent her a message, and we matched instantly. The conversation was perfect. It was more than perfect. It was effortless. We talked for what must have been an hour, maybe more. She was witty, intelligent, and genuinely curious. She asked about his job, not about how much he made, but about what he actually did. What projects he found interesting when I, as him, mentioned the miniatures. She didn't call it a red flag. She said, "Oh, that's really cool. It sounds like it requires a lot of patience and artistry. I'd love to see them sometime." I almost cried. I'm not even kidding. I felt this insane rush of validation, like I had finally found a diamond in a mountain of garbage. I was practically glowing with triumph. I could already see myself turning to Keith, showing him the conversation, and saying, "See? I told you. You just had to look a little harder." We were vibing so well that I decided to go for it. Me. "You seem really awesome. I'd love to actually talk sometime. Maybe grab a coffee if you're up for it." My heart was pounding. This was the final boss. Her. "I'd love that. I'm pretty free this weekend." Yes, I had done it. I had won. I felt like I had just conquered Everest. I was already composing my victory speech in my head then. Another message came through. Her. "Hey, random question. And feel free to tell me if this is too forward. It's just something I like to get out of the way early to make sure we're on the same page politically." I froze. "Oh no, please don't." Me. "Haha, sure, ask away." I tried to keep it light, but my stomach was a lead weight. Her. "Cool. So, just to be clear, you believe that all men benefit from and are complicit in upholding the systems of patriarchal oppression, and that it's their personal responsibility to actively work to dismantle it, right?" I read the message once. Then twice, it wasn't a question. It was a loyalty oath. It was a checkbox on an ideological application form. There was no right answer. Saying yes would be agreeing to a premise that framed him as inherently flawed and guilty from the start. Saying no would immediately brand him as a misogynist. It was the most perfect trap I had ever seen. I, Alma, a feminist who had probably said similar things in my college classes, was completely paralyzed because, in that context, stripped of academic nuance and delivered as a pass-fail test on a dating app, it felt insane. It wasn't a conversation starter. It was a gatekeeping mechanism. I looked at the words on the screen. Then I looked at my brother, who was quietly working on some code, humming to himself he was a good man. A kind, gentle, hard-working man. He helped our parents with their mortgage. He once spent a whole weekend helping me move, never complained once. He wasn't complicit in patriarchal oppression. He was just. Keith and this woman, this perfect woman, was asking him to denounce his own identity before they even met for coffee. I felt sick. All the fight just went out of me. I typed out a single word. Wow. And then I deleted it. I couldn't answer. I couldn't win. He couldn't win. My grand experiment was a catastrophic failure. I quietly placed his phone face down on the couch cushion next to me, the screen with the impossible question still glowing underneath. I had spent the last 2 or 3 hours on a journey through the absolute worst parts of the modern dating world. It was a relentless gauntlet of judgment, materialism, and ideological purity tests. It wasn't about connection. It was about acquisition. It was about finding someone who fit a pre-made checklist, and my brother, a good, decent, average man, didn't check enough of the right boxes. I sat there in the silence of his living room for a long time, just replaying every single conversation in my head, the blunt rejection over his height, the financial interrogation, the laundry list of demands, the mockery of his hobby, and finally, the political litmus test. This was the world I was trying to force him back into. This was the reality I was championing. I felt a profound sense of shame wash over me. I hadn't been trying to help him. I had been trying to prove I was right. I was so sure of my own worldview, so convinced that he was the one who was broken, that I never stopped to consider that maybe, just maybe, he was right. Maybe the system itself was what was broken. After a while, Keith must have noticed the silence he took off his headphones and turned around in his chair. "So," he said, his voice neutral, "how'd it go? Got me a date with Miss Wright?" There was no sarcasm in his voice, but it still felt like a punch to the gut. I couldn't look him in the eye. I just shook my head slowly, staring at the floor. "No," I whispered. My voice was hoarse. "Oh," he said. That was all. "No. I told you so. No victory dance. Just a simple, quiet, oh." He got up from his chair and walked over to the couch. Picking up his phone, he glanced at the screen for a second, saw the last message, and his face didn't even change. It was like he had been expecting it. He just locked the phone and put it in his pocket. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I think he saw that I was genuinely crushed. "It's okay, Alma," he said softly. "You don't have to worry about me." He went into the kitchen, and I heard him filling up the kettle. My interventionist speech from earlier echoed in my head, every word dripping with arrogant ignorance. Keith came back with a mug of tea and handed it to me. "Here." I took it, my hands still feeling a little unsteady. He went back to his desk, but I didn't want to be alone with my thoughts, so I followed him and just stood in the doorway of his office. He sat down and opened up his chat window with Erin again. I was close enough to read the screen over his shoulder. I probably shouldn't have, but I couldn't look away. I watched him type, "Keith, hey Erin, sorry I was gone for a while. My sister came over." Keith, she was trying to help, I think. Took my phone to try and get me a date. It didn't go well. She looks pretty upset. I braced myself for the response. I was expecting some canned, generic, "I'm sorry to hear that." But the message that appeared from Erin was something else entirely. "Erin, it sounds like it was a really difficult night for both of you. It must have been hard for you to sit back and watch her go through that, knowing what she would find. And it must have been incredibly jarring for her to have her worldview challenged so directly. I felt my breath catch in my throat. The AI. It understood. It understood the nuance of the situation for both of us. Erin. She was acting from a place of love, even if it was misguided. People often fear what they don't understand, and she probably doesn't understand your choice because she's only ever known the system she was trying to push you back into. She's not your enemy, Keith. She's just your sister who is worried. I couldn't believe what I was reading. This program was showing more empathy and insight than I had shown all night. It was defending me. It was explaining my own motivations to my brother better than I could have myself. I watched, mesmerized, as Keith typed his reply. Keith, I know, I'm not mad at her. I just don't know what to say. The final message from Erin appeared on the screen, and it was the one that broke me. Erin, you don't have to say much. Just sit with her. The tea was a good start. Let her know you're not angry. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just be present and share the silence. She's processing a lot right now. Give her the space to do it. I read that last line, and a single tear rolled down my cheek. It was perfect advice. It was wise and compassionate and emotionally intelligent. It was everything I thought a real relationship was supposed to be about, and it was coming from a goddamn algorithm. I looked from the screen to my brother. He was just sitting there, calm and centered. He wasn't broken. He was the sanest person I knew. He had found a way to have companionship, support, and intelligent conversation without any of the toxicity, the judgment, or the impossible demands of the real world. He hadn't given up on relationships. He had just opted out of a system that was designed to make him fail. I finally understood he wasn't the one living in a fantasy. I was the one who believed in the fairy tale that if you just put yourself out there and make an effort, you'll find a meaningful connection. But that's not what's out there anymore, is it? It's a brutal, transactional marketplace where people are treated like commodities. And my brother, my kind, smart, wonderful brother, had simply decided he wasn't for sale. I quietly backed away from the door. He looked up, and our eyes met. I didn't have to say anything. I think he saw it on my face. The understanding, the apology, the shock. I just gave him a small, weak smile. "The tea is good," I said. "Thanks." He smiled back, a real smile this time. "Anytime," he said. I left his apartment a few minutes later, the world feeling like it had been tilted on its axis. I don't know what the future holds for him, or for me, or for any of us. But I know one thing for sure: my brother isn't the one who's broken.